Hi everybody, welcome back to Happy Little Diodes. I wasn't going to film this repair, it's just an interface one and a microdrive. Now the interface one actually seemed to be working. The owner was saying it was getting microdrive not present, but when I tried it with a few microdrives I did get it to work. So no problem there. The microdrive I refurbished and it was formatting, but very quickly it stopped formatting and I was just getting microdrive not present. So I've been swapping out everything. I tried different interface ones. This is a different one. I've got about 5 on the desk. Also different microdrives. Here's another one of my spares. Same thing, microdrive not present. I really feel like I've swapped everything I possibly can and I'm still getting microdrive not present. So what that means is I've either done something to all of my cartridges and made them unusable, could be, or all of the ULA chips in all of these interfaces are bad. Could also be possible. So I've decided the only way I can do this is to make an order for some VLA1 chips. I don't have any. These have come all the way from New Zealand. Thank you, Charlie. And I've also got myself a vDrive, which is a microdrive SD card replacement. Kind of emulates a microdrive using SD cards. So what we're going to do right now is build up one of my spare interface ones with the VLA1, get it working, get it formatting, and that should allow us to figure out what's going wrong with this interface one and get it back to the owner as quickly as possible. Let's see how far we get. So here's the setup I'm using. It is the Pentagon 128K, the interface one in the back, link lead to the microdrive here. I've got the lid off at the minute while I'm testing it, and I've just been doing millions of formats, as you can see here. I'm getting really good at typing this command, and I'm going to show you what's happening. So it begins to format. This is normal, the border flickers black and white. Then it should stop flickering for a while and then start flickering again for the third part. But always at the halfway point we get microdrive not present. So the logical thing to do is to start eliminating things. Let's start by swapping the microdrive for another one and see what happens when we format using this. And in full screen this time, here we go, microdrive not present. So maybe it's the cartridge. We can swap that easily enough, don't even need to turn the machine off, and we'll try this one. Here we go. Microdrive not present. This was the same story for all of the cartridges, all of the microdrives and all of the interface ones, and all of the Spectrum that I have. Oh, and the link leads as well. And I'm starting to think that I'm not the only one who's been in this situation with microdrives before, and it is very tempting to give up, believe me. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my interface one here and I'm going to put a VLA1 in it. I'm going to preserve the old ULA because maybe it's fine. But I know with the VLA1 in, we have a good chip and we have a good interface one. That's the starting point. Then we're going to put together a good microdrive and find a good cart. Then we should have a perfect setup from which we can eliminate one thing at a time to help us with our repair processes. I can't quite remember the history with this interface one. Maybe I've been in there before. Just taking it apart to have a look because we're going to have to remove the chip anyway. I need to get the top of the case off. I'm getting pretty good at this. I actually remembered that you don't need to take off the 2 silver screws which are on the underside of the PCB. Just these 2 on the top. And we pop the edge connector through the case. It's a little bit tight but it does come out. And oh look, here's one I made earlier. Those white capacitors are definitely ones that I fitted, so this is one I've refurbished in the past, and I'll be very surprised if it does indeed have a bad ULA. I'm definitely going to be preserving that ULA for future use, if it does turn out to be fine. Now this does have a transistor mod on it, so I'm going to remove that carefully. I can't quite remember if it's needed with the VLA1 in place. I'm guessing probably not, but I'm going to keep it anyway because as a little assembly, I can reuse it on a future interface one if the need arises. Let's just have some nice close-up shots of it, see what a good job the factory did. And we'll start removing these leads. There's one here going to pin 40 of the ULA, There's one up on the top right there, and then the middle leg of the transistor is soldered directly to one of these pins on the ULA. I'm just going to remove that one and sort of poke it out of the way for now until I've checked if it's needed with the VLA1 in place. Yeah, that shouldn't get in the way there, especially since we don't need to replace that capacitor. So what's next? Well, we're going to need to desolder it, and I've got myself a new toy. Thank you, Lee, at More Fun Making It. Go check out his channel right now. Anyone kind enough to donate this piece of equipment, totally free of charge, to little old me, is worthy of a few more subscribers. So if any of you aren't already subscribed to Lee, get over there now. There's a link in the description. It looks like there's some goodies included as well, not just the desolder pump. Look at this. This appears to be a new ULA for a microdrive. Fantastic. That might come in useful later. And then this seems to be some kind of kit build, or well, not kit build, but it is a PCB to be built up for some kind of microdrive emulation. And I can see a buzzer on there, so it looks like it might actually emulate the sound of a microdrive as well, which is pretty cool. If you follow Lee, you've seen this pump in the review video he did of the Hakko desolder gun, and we don't need to go into too much detail. You can go and watch it there, he does a better job than I ever will. And look at all these spare nozzles and bits and bobs, that's extremely useful as well. What else have we got? Here are some microdrive guts, extremely useful for either spares or building up another microdrive. I'll be keeping them safe. And also, more microdrive bits. This has a motor attached to, and interestingly, there's a silver heatsink on the ULA chip. I've never seen that before. That's kind of cool. Also, the ribbon cables are black, so this seems to be some kind of custom job. Well, fantastic, what a treat. Let's get it set up in my tiny little office workspace. There it is. It's going to be having a power supply on its head. Should work for me in the corner there. Here's the PCB we were looking at. It is a ZX Pico MD. Version 1.3. There's the little buzzer. I can't wait to try that out. I'm going to have to order myself some parts and see if I can build this. That will make a fun video. So what do we need to do to the interface 1? Well, we need to remove the ULA chip. So here we go. It's my first go with a powered desolder gun. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just sort of poking it onto the leg there and pulling the trigger. Doesn't seem to be working. I did get my eye in eventually. I realised you need to give it a few seconds to melt and then turn the pump on and give it a waggle around, and it does seem to do okay. There were some cases where I couldn't seem to clear it, so I added solder back into the joint and the fresh solder did come out fairly easily, which was lovely. The fact that I managed to have success with this on the first try means once I get my eye in with it, it's going to be fairly easy to use and a good addition to the toolkit, so thank you very much, Lee. I did have to do a little bit of manual pin wiggling. Maybe I just haven't got the knack yet, or maybe this is just a necessary part even when you use a desolder gun. But there we are, it lifted out fairly easily with no damage at all to tracks or joints. Fantastic. On to more unboxing, how exciting. This is one of the boxes which came all the way from New Zealand. vRetro Designs, go check it out. Lots of cool, unique, specky stuff on there. I'll put a link in the description as well. This particular box is going to contain our VLA1 chips. Check this out. I did stash up a little bit. Why not if you're paying shipping from New Zealand? So I have 4 VLA1 chips to go into the stock here. That's cool. And of course, please read the manual before installation, and I actually will for a change, even though this isn't the first one of these that I've fitted. Let's take a look at it. This should be a newer revision than anything we've seen before, and yeah, it is. There's no components on the top side of the board, so the regulator and capacitors and things must be on the underside. We'll have a closer look in a minute. What about the bigger box? This is going to contain the vDrive, I hope. I don't know if it's a kit or not, I can't remember what I ordered. Let's take a look inside. And well, there's a case at least, and there is, oh yeah, of course, there's a VLA1 to go with that too, so I guess I've got 5. That's pretty cool. Here's our VLA1. There's a link lead provided, that's very kind, I'll be using that. And then it looks like the vDrive is fully assembled in a really nice condition microdrive case with a brand new faceplate. Let's have a close look, and this is going to save me a big job of putting this thing together, which is really nice. Look at that, a new faceplate to put on, lovely. So as you can see, there's an SD card slot in the front of this. all you have to do is put an SD card in, a little bit of setting up on the Specky, and you're away. You've got a emulated chain of up to 8 microdrives. Lovely. Feels very light because there's no motor in there as well, I noticed. Here's the new VLA1 version 2.2, 2023, cool. And yet, as expected, we have a regulator, a few resistors and capacitors on the underside. It's going to make it look very neat indeed. And it's going to go in this way around. The first time I fitted one of these, I didn't check the orientation and fluked it 50-50. So yeah, I now know this is the correct way around to do it. Let's solder it into place. That's all we need to do with the interface one. So let's get it back into its case. Fast forward, there we are, all put together again, and we can give it a quick test. Lovely. I mentioned earlier I'm not very good at labeling things of my own, so I'm going to be sensible now and put a sensible sticker on here to remind myself that it has a VLA1 inside. I got these cat stickers especially, and really annoying, it looks like it's not sticky enough. They must be cheaply made or something, so I'm going to have to use a sensible sticker. There we go, that'll do. Let's take the VLA1 for a spin. I've plugged in a microdrive and a cart, and I'm running a format command, and here we go. Microdrive not present. To be honest, I was hoping for that because that implies the ULA1 is probably fine, so that's safe in the box for future use. Let's just try a different cart to be sure, and yeah, microdrive not present once again. Maybe a different microdrive just to be 100% sure. Here we go, let's go again. All together now, microdrive not present. Alright, moving on. Here's the vDrive. There's no assembly to do, it's ready to go, so I've put in a blank SD card and we're going to set it up together now. When you first fire it up, you just type run and it installs a toolkit which gives you some extra commands. One such command is .sdinit, which will format and initialize the SD card. There we are, that's done. You can see a full list of commands here, and what I'm going to do is make a directory called test directory using the mkdir command, and then we can navigate to it in true DOS style by typing cd testdir. There it is. Now in here we need to make an image. This is like an image of our microdrive. I'm going to call it test image 1 using the mkimg make image command, and then that's done. Then we need to load this image onto 1, so microdrive 1 in our chain of microdrives, and then it's just a case of formatting the virtual blank cart we've put into microdrive 1 using the normal format command, and there we are, then it's done. We've got a working emulated microdrive, so I can use the save command or the shortcut .s, which comes in the toolkit, to save a test program to it. As you can see there, it's formatted with a perfect 127 kilobytes. I'm just going to try loading that program back using the .l shortcut, and it's worked perfectly. So what does that tell me? It tells me I have a working vDrive, but it also tells me I have a working interface 1, which is good. So now I need to find a working microdrive. Here's one I got in an eBay bundle recently. I've done nothing to this, and hey look, it's actually formatted fine, which is surprising, and it's formatted with 81 kilobytes, which is actually really good. So here it is, I've taken the case off. This is the working microdrive. I've done nothing to it, which is a little bit annoying because the two that I've refurbished don't seem to be working. Let's have a closer look. Compared to this one, this is one that has been refurbished. You can tell because I've got those new capacitors in. I did notice on the working microdrive there was a decoupling capacitor on the ULA, so I've added one of those to this microdrive that I'm repairing, just to see if it solves our problems. I'm not expecting it will, but as I mentioned, I was running out of ideas. So let's plug it in and give it a quick try, cross our fingers, using this cart which did format on the other working microdrive. Here we go, and well, I can tell you it didn't work. So then I started trying literally everything. I tried replacing the capacitors, the voltage regulator on this microdrive, which doesn't seem to be working. I even tried a different motor. As you can see from this little compilation, I'm not going to bore you with everything. I even got the scope out and I was learning about what the waveforms should look like, which was interesting at least. But ultimately I didn't have anything to show for it until I noticed one thing by chance while I was trying to run a format. I'm going to give you a close-up of it now. I'm going to make a stack so I can bring the Microdrive all the way up to the camera because it doesn't reach all the way down to the desk, and I'm going to show you the rubber roller and where it pinches the tape up close in extreme detail. Here we go, this is using a rubber roller from an original Microdrive, not a reproduction, and look at the tape. The tape is moving, it's actually being sent around the cassette, and in this case it would format okay. Here we go again, and using this particular roller, look what was happening. The shaft was just spinning and it wasn't turning and it wasn't moving the tape. Here is a 3D printed replacement rubber roller that I bought, and in this case it also wasn't moving the tape. Now that could be down to the 3D printed roller or the cartridge or just the combination of the two. Either way, this is what we want. We want the tape to be spinning around and making that nice sound which tells us it's working fine. But what we want to avoid, which we get on some original rollers, is this, where it stops spinning altogether. So what are we to do? Well, before we rush on and start making rollers, let's have a look at the cartridges. There are a couple of things to consider here. One of the most important things is the felt. You need to remove the old felt from your old Microdrives because they just crumble like this to dust. They'll get inside the cartridge and clog everything up, and you'll have a duff cartridge. So what you want to do is clean off the old felt completely, as so, and refelt it. Now don't do this, you can see this felt is way too thick, it's just what I happen to have from some Commodore work recently. I'm just doing some experimenting, I'm going to see how this goes. But what happens, as you can see, is when you spin it up, it pushes the cartridge out a little bit and everything goes wrong. So we need some good felt, we'll come back to that later. What about the rubber rollers? Yeah, you can buy 3D printed rubber rollers, but I personally would rather have a pucker rubber roller manufactured for this purpose. And guess what? You can get them on AliExpress and they cost nothing, they cost pennies. What I could do is buy them myself and resell them as Microdrive rollers. I'm not going to do that, I'm just going to put the link in the description to the AliExpress listing. There's no affiliation, I just think you all deserve good rollers that are cheap. Now the only problem with these is they don't fit on the shaft of the motor. The hole inside is too tight, but it's quite easy to drill it out. I was a bit worried that I would need to do this perfectly perpendicular, but you don't really. Just drill it out with a 2mm bit so it matches the original roller, and you can force it on there. It's a bit of a tolerance fit, but that's what you want really. You don't want the shaft to be spinning loose like we saw previously. Now get yourself some good felt. I got this from eBay, sold specifically for this purpose, but all that means is I haven't found a stock of this particular felt being sold as felt for cheap. I'll get round to it at some point. I just bought these because I wanted the job done. So I've cut it down to size, I'm going to poke it onto here on the cartridge, squash it down, and we'll give it a run with our new lovely rubber roller and a new felted cartridge. Let's see how we go. Remember, we're listening for that whooshy tape going round the cartridge sound. Let's see what happens. Oh god, that sounds garbage. Well, let's not stress just yet, it's probably just a bad cartridge. We'll try it on a different one. How about this one? Oh god, that's sounding rough too. Okay, let's throw that one away and we'll try another one. Try this one. That's the stuff. Alright, it did format, but I wanted to build the case back up because I do think having the case on does affect the operation and how well it formats to some extent, because the Microdrive cartridge is held in its slot a little bit more. So here we go with the format. You probably got a sneak preview there that it was working and I was testing it. I just wanted to show you a full format and show you how well it goes. So here's our first section where the border flickers, then it stays white for a little bit. I don't know what's happening here, I'm not really a software guy, but then it will start flickering again. If you get this far, it's probably going to format, which is good news. Alright, hooray! Let's do a cat command. Hang on, I'm still getting used to this keyboard. Cat1 will tell us the contents and the capacity of the cartridge. There'll be no contents. The capacity is 81. That's pretty good. Anything over 80 I'm pretty happy with. So I've done alright out of that. I've got myself a working microdrive for myself. I've got myself a vDriveZX, which is pretty nice. And I've got this microdrive and interface 1 working together for the customer. I'm going to send it back with this microdrive cartridge to go with it, so it's all ready to go. So it seems like my problems pretty much came down to rubber rollers, which we've solved by the way, remember AliExpress, and getting a good quality microdrive cartridge. I've been a bit presumptuous so far, thinking that a good microdrive and interface will format any cartridge, which was daft. Oh, I've also got a interface 1 for myself out of this with a VLA1 in there and new capacitors. Hang on, you can't read that, it's all blown out with the white balance. I'll fix that, give me a second. There we are, no cat sticker I'm afraid, I'm just using the sensible grown-up one. So there we have it, there is hope. If you're stuck in the gauntlet of microdrives, you can figure it out. Bear in mind the points in this video, and I think you'll get there. Thanks for watching till the end, and I'll see you in the next video.